Most people think hate comes from open conflict. But the truth is, some of the deepest resentment builds in silence, when someone's very presence makes others uncomfortable. That's exactly what happens with Sigma males. Even when they're just minding their own business and trying to live life on their own terms, they don't go out of their way to pick fights or prove themselves. Yet the way they carry themselves often stirs irritation, envy, and even quiet hostility. Why? Because Sigma males have habits and behaviors that clash with what most people expect. They don't play by the usual social rules, and that difference can feel threatening. It's not that they're trying to be difficult. In fact, much of it comes naturally. But to the outside world, these patterns are misunderstood, and over time, they build up into things people secretly despise. Let's uncover the 8 things people hate most about Sigma males and why these traits, while often resented, are also part of what makes them so unshakable. 1. They notice what others try to hide. Have you ever been around someone who seems to read you like a book? That's what it feels like with a Sigma. They pick up on details most people overlook: tone shifts, body language, even the way you pause before answering a question. And while this isn't something they do to intimidate, it still makes people uneasy. Nobody likes the feeling of being seen through. Psychologists explain that humans rely on social masks to survive. Little lies, exaggerations, or half-truths that make interactions smoother. But Sigma males often bypass those masks entirely. They notice the crack in your voice when you say you're fine, or the glance you avoid when you're hiding guilt. They don't always call it out, but their quiet awareness makes others feel exposed. This ability creates resentment because people value their privacy, even in social situations. When someone seems to perceive what you'd rather keep hidden, it feels threatening, almost like you've lost control over the image you're projecting, and that discomfort can quickly turn into dislike.
2. They don't soften their truths. Most people expect honesty to come wrapped in a soft tone, a little sugar-coating, to make the truth easier to swallow. Sigma males don't always do that. When they see something, they say it the way it is, direct, plain, and without the extra padding. And while some admire that bluntness, many others quietly hate it. But why? Because most social interactions are built on small lies. We call them white lies, but they're really just social cushions. Someone asks, "Do you like my idea?" And the polite response is, "It's interesting," even if you're not impressed. Sigma skip that cushion. They'll say, "It doesn't work," or "I think you're forcing it." And suddenly the air in the room changes. This creates tension because people aren't used to hearing unfiltered honesty. It feels harsh, even when it's true. And on a deeper level, it forces people to face parts of themselves they'd rather avoid. That sting of discomfort easily morphs into resentment. The irony is, Sigma males don't intend to be cruel. They just don't see the point in layering their words with unnecessary fluff. Their version of respect is telling you the truth straight, but to fragile egos, that clarity feels less like respect and more like an attack. 3. They never beg for second chances. Here's something that shocks people about these men. Once they walk away, they rarely look back. If trust is broken, if respect is lost, they don't chase after you or beg for another shot. And for many, that's infuriating. Humans are wired to expect negotiation in relationships, whether it's friendships, romance, or even work. When conflict happens, most people plead their case, compromise, or at least try to win back favor. But Sigma males don't play that game. In their world, you don't bargain for respect. You either keep it or you lose it for good. If you shatter it, they'd rather cut ties than recycle what's already broken. This leaves others stunned, because it removes their sense of control. People like to think they can redeem themselves or talk their way back in, but with these individuals, that door closes fast, and the swiftness of that decision feels cold, even brutal. From a psychological angle, this behavior is tied to self-respect.
Sigma males value their energy too much to invest it in repairing something that already shows cracks. But, to outsiders, it comes across as unforgiving. They mistake it for arrogance or cruelty, when in reality, It's a defense mechanism that prevents future disappointment. And that's exactly why people hate it. Because when a Sigma moves on, they don't just lose the connection, they lose the power to get it back. 4. They ask questions that cut too deep. Most conversations stay on safe ground. Work updates, weekend plans, casual jokes. Nothing too heavy, nothing too real. That safety net is comforting because it keeps us from having to face the things we'd rather not admit. But every now and then, someone pulls the net away with a single question. That's what makes certain interactions with Sigma males so uncomfortable. Instead of letting a vague answer slide, they'll ask, "But is that actually what you want?" Or, "Why do you stay in that situation?" Suddenly, the easy flow of small talk is gone, and the spotlight is on the truth you've been dodging. Psychologists call this moment cognitive dissonance. When your words don't match the reality you feel inside, it creates tension not just with yourself, but with the person who forced you to face it. And instead of gratitude, many people respond with quiet resentment. It's not about being rude or nosy. For Sigma males, curiosity naturally points toward what's real, even when it's uncomfortable. But to those who rely on the comfort of small lies, that kind of honesty feels less like curiosity and more like being caught off guard in a spotlight you never asked for. 5. They never compete for attention. In almost every group, there's an invisible contest happening. People laugh a little louder, talk a little longer, or dress a little flashier, all trying to secure their slice of recognition. It's subtle, but it's there. And then there's the person who doesn't join the contest at all. That's where the irritation begins. When someone refuses to scramble for validation, it unsettles the balance. Instead of chasing eyes on applause, the Sigma sits comfortably on the sidelines, completely detached from the silent competition. To others, that calm indifference feels like rejection. It's as if he's silently saying, "I don't need this game, and I don't need your approval to feel secure." The twist is that indifference itself often pulls more attention. The one who isn't trying somehow ends up being the one everyone notices. That contrast makes people restless. How can someone attract a crowd by doing the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing? This is why their presence frustrates people. It's not arrogance or smugness. It's the unsettling realization that someone can step out of the game entirely and still win without even lifting a finger. 6. They don't join pointless traditions. There's a reason traditions linger. They create rhythm and familiarity. But not all of them hold meaning anymore. Some are just habits people follow because that's how it's always been done. Office parties where nobody really wants to be there. Family dinners that end in the same arguments. Or rituals that feel more like obligations than joy. Sigma males tend to step back from these, and that decision alone often irritates others. It's not because they look down on tradition as a whole. They simply see the difference between something that builds real connection and something that's just performed out of routine. The energy spent pretending is energy wasted. And so when faced with hollow customs, they usually choose absence over participation. But here's the nuance people often miss. Sigma males don't reject every single gathering or ritual. Sometimes they'll show up not for the tradition itself, but for the people they care about. They understand there are moments where skipping isn't an option because the cost of absence would hurt someone they value. For many, it's a pattern that's difficult to understand. How can someone who avoids traditions suddenly decide to join one? The answer is simple. It's never about the ritual. It's about the intent behind it. If there's no real connection, they'll bow out. But if showing up matters to someone they respect, they'll be there, quietly, without making it a bigger deal than it is. 7. They woke their own timing. Life moves fast, and most people feel pressured to keep up. Get the promotion by a certain age, buy the house when everyone else does, settle into the milestones that make life look normal. It creates an invisible clock that dictates when things should happen, and falling behind that clock can feel like failure. But Sigma males rarely run on that schedule. They move at a pace that makes sense for them, even if it looks out of sync to everyone else. Sometimes that means waiting longer before making a big move. Other times, it means acting sooner than expected. Either way, they're not racing against anyone else's stopwatch. This unsettles people because it challenges the timelines they've built their own choices around. If someone achieves something later and still does it well, it forces others to question why they rushed. If someone moves faster, it sparks envy or suspicion. In either case, their timing feels like a disruption. The truth is, Sigma men aren't avoiding life's milestones. They simply reach them when it feels right, not when outside voices say they should. And while that independence often breeds resentment, it also reveals a subtle strength. They trust their path enough not to measure it against anyone else's. 8. They don't answer to group pressure. Groups are powerful because they make people feel safe. When everyone is moving in the same direction, it feels natural to follow. Even if the path doesn't make much sense, most won't question it because questioning risks standing out. But there are moments when that momentum is being guided by the wrong voice, a manipulative leader, or simply a collective urge to take the easy way out. That's when the Sigma quietly steps aside. He doesn't resist for the sake of being different. He resists because he sees the cracks in the direction the group is heading. If a decision feels dishonest, self-destructive, or built on shallow motives, he'd rather be the one person who says, "This doesn't add up," than get swept into something he'll regret later. Of course, this unsettles others. People don't like to be reminded that they're following someone else's lead without thinking. A Sigma's refusal exposes that, and it can feel like judgment, even when it's not meant to be. But it's not about fighting every group decision. When the path is solid and the intentions are clear, they'll walk with everyone else. The difference is they don't confuse comfort with truth. And when the crowd heads into fog, they'd rather stop walking than follow blindly.